Not sure how well this light's gonna work out, but we're gonna roll with it and find out. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Marlow and I am a self-published author. Now today I wanted to answer a question that I have been asked a lot. And I've seen other authors and writers ask the same question, and that is, how do I write a book? Or how do I start a book? So I'm going to tell you exactly how to start a book. You sit down, you write. Okay, thanks, bye! No, but for real, I've been asked this question so many times, but I don't really know how to answer it because generally when I want to start writing a new story, I just sit down and write it. I don't really spend all my time worrying about, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? Do I need to do all this prep beforehand? Because I honestly think that too much technicality ruins creativity. And I think a lot of people who aren't really sure where to begin, they're afraid that there is some secret starting point that they don't know about and that they need to know, or all these preparations they need to make in order to have a successful book. And that's not necessarily the case. So I'm going to share a few tips that I came up with to maybe help you get an idea of where to start if you're just completely lost. My first tip is to just write. So say you have an idea of something that you want to happen, or maybe something interesting happened to you and you want to write about it for a nonfiction piece. Just sit down and start writing and see where it takes you. I mean, you'd be really surprised by where a story can take you if you literally just sit down and start putting words on a page. And this works really well for me most of the time because I've been doing this for a while, so for me, the blank page isn't really scary or that daunting. It's kind of like a place for opportunity because you don't know where some small idea could take you. Blood of Fire, my debut novel, started with just a misfit girl with powers. And then it transformed into what's going to be a 3-book series in which, you know, there's totalitarian governments and there's genocide and there's people with all kinds of powers. And I really just had a small idea and just went with it and saw where it went. And of course I changed and edited lots of stuff along the way. But at the end of the day, I just sat down and started writing. So maybe writing stream of consciousness sort of stuff doesn't work for you. If that's the case, my next tip is to brainstorm ideas. So maybe you have a small idea in mind, but you're not really sure if it's worth spending the time that it takes to actually sit down and flesh it out. If that's the case, maybe come up with a few ideas for a story. Maybe you want to write a fantasy story about witches and wizards. Maybe some sort of like Harry Potter fan fiction. There's an idea. Maybe you want to write a contemporary novel about a crime mystery. Or maybe there is some significant part of your life that you think would make an interesting memoir. Maybe that's an idea too. Sometimes it can help to have a few ideas in mind before you start writing so that you know which one appeals to you the most and which one you think you can flesh out enough to see to the end. So some people tend to start a story with a particular scene. Maybe the big climactic ending comes to their mind and they want to think, how can I work backwards to get to that point? Or maybe they see an opening scene and they want to see where it takes them. That's always an idea. You start with a scene and then see where that scene takes you. Figure out if you need to work backwards to get back to the beginning or need to move forwards to see where it goes. Maybe you'll find out that the scene that you thought about is actually really good for the middle part of the book and you want to write everything else around it. My fourth tip is to start with a character and work from there. Say you keep thinking about a particular person and you have a name, you have a face, you know pretty much everything about them, but you're not quite sure what to do with them. A lot of writers don't really know exactly what the entire plot is going to be. I mean, let's be honest, I think most writers don't know what the entire plot of their story is going to be, but they have a really interesting character that they've dreamed up or thought up or something, or they wanted to base a character off of someone that they know or knew, but they're just not sure what to do with them. Sometimes just thinking about that character and their personality and the stuff that they might like to do or the sort of trouble that they might find themselves in can give you ideas for where the rest of the story should go. My next tip is for people who don't have a character in mind, they don't have much of a plot in mind, they just know that they really want to write a story. And for a lot of people, writing a book is sort of like a bucket list item that they really want to accomplish within their lifetime. Maybe it's just for themselves as a hobby, or maybe they want to eventually turn it into a career or a part-time job or just some extra way that they can make money, but they really don't know where to begin. So for that, my next tip is to think about your favorite genres. A piece of advice I think we've all heard a lot is to write what you know. And in some cases, that could literally be writing something that you know about in real life. Maybe you worked in a bakery and you want to write about something that happens in a bakery, or maybe you like camping and you want to write about a camping survival story of some sort. But maybe you just really like horror movies. Maybe you really like reading young adult. Maybe you really like reading romance. It can really help to think about the types of books that you like to read, or even the types of movies you like to watch, so then you can get some ideas of at least what kind of story you want to write. Say you would really like to watch horror movies. Maybe you're really obsessed with zombie movies specifically. So if you're really obsessed with this particular genre, horror zombie movies, then why not use that as inspiration to write your own zombie horror book? The thing I like about writing your favorite genre, regardless of the character that it's going to be, or maybe the plot that's going to happen, is at least you know that you are going to be interested and passionate about it. For instance, I like reading young adult books. I like fantasy, I like contemporary, so it makes sense that I write a fantasy young adult book. On the flip side, I don't really like horror. I'm not a huge fan of romance, so me trying to force myself to write a horror book or a romance novel or mystery or something that I genuinely don't like doesn't really make any sense. Look to your favorite genres and your favorite authors for inspiration so that you have an idea of where you want to begin. And my last tip is to make an outline. As someone who doesn't really make very detailed outlines, this might sound a little bit hypocritical, but there is a lot to be said for people who insist that you need an outline. I personally don't believe that you need a detailed outline in order to get started or to even have a successful book, but it does help to even have a sort of skeleton outline, which is kind of what I do. I'm mostly a pantser, meaning I just sit down and I write stuff. However, I do have very minimal outlines. For instance, I might know how I want the story to begin, I might have some ideas for some middle action that could happen, and I know how I want the story to end. Or maybe I know how I want the story to begin and end, and I'm not quite sure what happens in the middle. So in those cases, I will make a very small outline. I'll write down, this is how it opens, these are some scenes, this is the action, this is the climax, this is the end. I don't write out every single scene, act, whatever, word for word or as in much detail as a lot of other people do, and that's perfectly fine. If you want to have a really detailed outline and have everything ready to go so you know exactly what to expect, go for it. However, once you get to writing, you realize that things often don't go the way that you expect or the way that you planned. But I really think that a lot of new writers struggle with the dauntingness of writing a book. They see a blank page and they see potential mistakes, or they see confusion, or all the different ways that a story can go. But to me, I think it's kind of exciting. But if you feel like the story might go a little out of hand, or just go in so many directions that you don't quite know what's going on anymore, it really does help to have at least a brief outline so you have sort of like an instruction manual to tell you where you want the plot to go. So those are my tips for how to start a novel. Truth be told, when it comes to starting a book or beginning writing, I really think you just need to sit down and write. Instead of worrying about whether or not it's going to be a great book, whether or not you're going to finish in a certain amount of time, don't let yourself scare yourself away from the entire process. Sit down with whatever ideas that you have and start writing them down and see where they take you. The thing to remember when you start writing is that the things that you write in your first draft aren't set in stone. In a lot of cases, they're going to be really crappy. It's not going to necessarily make a lot of sense. There's going to be spelling errors and grammar errors and inconsistencies, but those are all the things that you can fix while you edit the book. You can't edit a blank page. So I guess that's all I have for you guys today. If you found any of these tips helpful, feel free to give this video a thumbs up. If you have any tips of your own that you'd like to include, please leave them in the comments so that other people can see them later. And if you have any specific questions about the writing process that you'd like me to answer in a future video, leave a comment as well. So until next time, see ya! This is an ugly pen to use. That's not aesthetically pleasing at all. Where's the less disgusting pen? Here we go. I'm pensive. How am I gonna start this book?